Adam Ereli, former US ambassador to Bahrain for the US, and former State Department Deputy Spokesperson. How do you assess the State Department's current relationship with Iran in particular?
Oh, well, the State Department has no relations with Iran. The United States has no relations with Iran. I think that's probably a good thing. Since, well, actually, there's a division of opinion. Some would say that if you're not talking to Iran, there's no way to moderate or change its behavior. There are others who say that talking with them only encourages that behavior. I'm of the view that the United States has tried many, many times to open a dialogue with, to engage, and to otherwise have some kind of relationship with Iran, and every time we have met with failure. So at present, President Obama pursued a policy of, I think, accommodation with the aim of slowing down Iran's nuclear program. Donald Trump was elected on with a very different agenda to tighten containment of Iran, to confront Iran much more aggressively, and to depart from Obama's policy of accommodation.
But Trump had a very high-profile visit in the last few months in Saudi Arabia. Does that change the momentum of relations in that part of the world?
Well, at one point it looked like it might change the momentum. So Trump, on his first overseas trip, went to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. While he was there, he hosted the 6 heads of state of the GCC countries, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, the UAE, and Qatar, and that they agreed in the Riyadh communique to work together to fight and combat Iranian influence. So that was a huge change and a positive development that I think probably concerned the mullahs in Tehran quite a bit. But a few short days later, 3 of those countries, the GCC countries, Bahrain, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia, decided that Qatar was more of a threat to them than Iran, and announced some very harsh measures against Qatar, and that dispute is now roiling the GCC waters with the effect of, frankly, letting Iran off the hook. So Trump's initial success in brokering or presiding over a GCC consensus on confronting Iran has very quickly unraveled to the detriment of the United States and the GCC, and unfortunately to the benefit of Iran.
For the EU, the Iran nuclear deal is seen as quite an achievement, working, the High Representative Mogherini, working with Secretary of State John Kerry. They put a lot of effort into that. Where do you think it should go from here? For Europe, it's very important. Where do you think the Iran deal goes forward?
Well, I don't think there's going to be much movement on the Iran deal forward or backward. So the Iran deal is very specific. It prevents Iran from enriching uranium for 10 years. After 10 years, Iran is free to do whatever it wants. So one should not be too... I don't think one should get too excited about the nuclear deal. It basically achieved 2 objectives. One is it prevented a war, which we were very close to having because Iran was developing a nuclear weapon. It was getting very close, and something had to be done to slow that down. So the deal did that, slowed it down for 10 years. Second of all, the deal relaxed sanctions on Iran. But it's going to expire in 10 years, and then what? Is there going to be a new deal? I don't think so. I don't think Iran wants a new deal. I don't think the United States is going to back out of the deal. So, frankly, it is what it is.
And do you think that there is movement for change within Iran? We are here today with the Iranian opposition, but within Iran itself, do you see movements to change the current regime?
Well, that's a very good question, and it's one that people a lot smarter than I debate all the time. But There are those who argue that there are changes have plenty of evidence to point to changes, and there are those who argue that there aren't changes have plenty of evidence to point that there aren't changes. And so I guess the simple answer to the question would be, you know, facts don't lie. And the fact is, no matter how you analyze it or how you call it, the fact is that the Supreme Leader is still the guy in charge. The Supreme Leader and the IRGC still control 60 or 70% of the economy, and that no dissent is tolerated, and Iran has the highest per capita rate of capital punishment anywhere, and there's no independent political opposition. And so that doesn't sound like moderation to me.
It does sound quite like Saudi Arabia, your ally.
Well, you know, that's funny you say that, because I think there was a State Department official who was asked that in a briefing. I don't think there's anything approaching a valid comparison between Iran and Saudi Arabia for a couple of very simple reasons. Saudi Arabia doesn't pretend to be a democracy. Iran does. So if Saudi Arabia started calling it a democracy, I'd be as tough on Saudi Arabia as I am on Iran. But Saudi Arabia doesn't pretend to be a democracy. Saudi Arabia has only been a country since 1932. Saudi Arabians pretty much support the monarchy. I mean, yeah, there are pushes for some political reform. It comes slowly, but it's a traditional society. But the social contract, if you will, between the people of Saudi Arabia and the throne, and the people of Iran and the mullahs, is a very different contract. So to me, it's apples and oranges, and doesn't bear comparison.